Well, it's 9 p.m. IC. We are coming to you with some breaking news. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that he is now ready to talk with U.S. President Donald Trump on the Ukraine-Russia war and is now waiting for a signal from Washington, D.C. Well, is a war-ending deal on the cards? And now this is the big question that we're asking you right now. It comes a day after U.S. President Donald Trump said that he is working to end the war. And after Zelensky said that he could speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin, all sides now appear to hash out a peace deal. It all sounds highly promising at this point of time, except that it raises several practical questions. Who puts their guns down first? What concessions will be made to end the 3 years of fighting? Let's do a deep dive now. First, let's get you up to date with what's happened. On Friday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that he was ready for talks with his U.S. counterpart, fueling expectations of contact between the two world leaders. He said, and I'm quoting here, "As for the issue of negotiations, we have always said, and I want to emphasize this once again, that we are ready for these negotiations on Ukrainian issues." This after U.S. President Donald Trump said that he wants to meet Putin as soon as possible in a bid to secure an end to the war with Ukraine. Remember, Trump has been pushing for a deal to end the Ukraine war. He has also expressed his desire to work towards cutting nuclear arms, something that the Kremlin said Putin had made clear he wanted to. Earlier, media reports suggested that Trump's team was eyeing a peace plan for Ukraine, which could include a ceasefire along the current front lines and the creation of an 800-mile demilitarized zone patrolled by European troops. Additionally, the roadmap would reportedly see Ukraine's agreement to delay its aspirations to join NATO for at least 20 years. That's what Russia said. Russia, however, has ruled out a freezing of the conflict. In fact, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that the Kremlin is, of course, not satisfied with proposals to postpone Ukraine's NATO ambitions and deploy a Western peacekeeping contingent in Ukraine. Russia has insisted that hostilities will only end when Ukraine commits to permanent neutrality and also a denazification of Ukraine. It has also said that Ukraine must recognize the territorial realities on the battlefield, on the ground, which means accepting the status quo on the front, which would essentially mean Ukraine ceding territory. Question is, will Ukraine agree to these terms? You see, Zelensky's recent readiness to hold talks is a stark departure from his stand in the fall of 2022, right after Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia were annexed by Russia. Zelensky had signed a decree banning himself from any negotiations with Putin, and that decree still remains in force. Yet, in an interview with news outlet Bloomberg, Zelensky appeared to have changed his stance on the issue. The Ukrainian president now appears ready to secure a commitment from Trump to support and secure Ukraine before engaging with Putin. So then the question emerges, will Zelensky walk back on his terms to engage in talks? And even as these practicalities face all three leaders, there's another reality on the ground. Intense fighting continues between both the sides. On Friday, Russia launched a barrage of drones in an overnight attack on Ukraine. This attack killed 3 civilians and damaged residential and commercial buildings. As the war approaches the 3-year mark, Russia has stepped up its air attacks on Ukraine as well, sending dozens of drones almost every night to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russia's Ryazan region saw an air attack early on Friday. The local authorities reported attacks on oil storage and a power station. A day before, Russia said on Thursday that its forces had taken control of one more settlement in Donetsk region. On the same day, Ukraine reported striking Russian targets, including command post Fighting has just become intense and Ukraine's front lines is on the brink of a collapse. And Russian forces continue making rapid and major advances on the battlefield deeper into Ukraine. Russian advances over the past month expose Russia's approach, and that is of encirclement, of resource depletion and of steady territorial gains. And it looks like it is working right now. Even as Trump tries to get the two sides on the table, the focus on the battlefield remains on consolidating gains, securing supply lines and preparing for the next phase of operations. Trump has described the Ukraine war as an absolute killing field and has declared that it was time to end it. Well, questions remain. Can he end it? Well, we are now being joined live by Susan Tehrani from New York for more on the story. Hi, Susan. First up, how is the Trump administration seeing the statement from Moscow where Putin has said that he is ready to talk with his American counterpart?
So Putin's remarks are in response to President Trump's remarks at Davos yesterday, where he talked about the human toll and the human cost of the war, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And while President Trump did mention that there is an economic element to this war, and that's the high price of oil, and that if OPEC brings down the price of oil, then this conflict will end sooner than later, Vladimir Putin dismissed that, saying that the issue with Ukraine is a security concern and not an economic one. So we're waiting to see if Donald Trump is going to respond directly to Vladimir Putin's comments. Putin made some interesting comments, even going as far as agreeing with President Trump that, quote, if the 2020 election was not stolen, then perhaps Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 would not happen. He called President Trump smart, yet pragmatic. These are all sentiments that President Trump has shared regarding Vladimir Putin as well. Policymakers and analysts now believe that a peace deal is closer than ever, notably with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, as you mentioned, also expressing a desire to reach some kind of deals.
Right, Susan, thanks for joining us on GRAVITAS with the latest. In the shadow of escalating global tensions, U.S. President Donald Trump emerges as an unexpected harbinger of peace. With nuclear threats looming and international relations on a razor's edge, Trump is now pushing for nuclear disarmament and global dialogue. Our next story explains the contours of the proposed nuclear summit. Take a look.
The world today is a much more dangerous place. Dangerous missiles are being developed and deployed amid a lack of dialogue between global powers. Humanity is inching closer to the brink of catastrophic confrontation. The US is deploying long-range missiles in Germany. Enraged with the act of the Biden administration, Moscow is increasingly moving ahead to deploy missiles along and even beyond its borders. Russia also changed its nuclear doctrine, blaming the West's actions for the move. Western countries are equally blaming Russia for ratcheting up tensions. All this while a dangerous war is raging in Ukraine. Shunned and sanctioned by the West, Russia is forging deeper ties with China, Iran and North Korea. Against this volatile backdrop, Trump's diplomatic overture signals a potential breakthrough in nuclear arms control.
I will tell you that President Putin really liked the idea of cutting way back on nuclear. And I think the rest of the world, we would have gotten them to follow. And China would have come along too. China also liked it.
Trump unveils an ambitious plan to convene talks with Russia and China, targeting significant reductions in nuclear weapons stockpiles. The US president's proposal comes at a critical moment when global nuclear arsenals are expanding, with China projected to increase its stockpile from 600 to 1,000 warheads by 2030. Russia possesses 5,889 nuclear warheads, marginally more than America's 5,244. Meanwhile, strategic alliances are shifting dramatically. Russia, sanctioned by Western powers, has deepened ties with China, Iran and North Korea, a geopolitical realignment that dramatically reshapes global power dynamics. Trump's vision extends beyond Russia and China. He is previously engaged with North Korea and now hints at potential negotiations with Iran, demonstrating a multifaceted approach to nuclear de-escalation. His assertion that Putin was receptive to negotiations during his previous administration suggests a potential path to renewed diplomatic engagement.
There is a sense that Donald Trump would disrupt the status quo, could be good for Russia. Certainly the divisions that are likely to follow, that have been anticipated, whether they will follow, we don't know. But that kind of sense that the West is dividing, that the US and the European Union, Europe more broadly, won't hang together. That, I think, always plays to Russia's advantage. It's what they like to see, division within the West.
As global powers continue their intricate dance of deterrence and diplomacy, Trump's vision offers a glimmer of hope, a potential roadmap to reducing the existential threat of nuclear conflict. The big question is, can Trump translate this vision into action? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Well, Mr. On stories from the United States of America, where US President Donald Trump has blamed a fish for the wildfires in LA. Sounds fishy? Well, we don't blame you. In an apparent dig, one of Trump's executive orders directed the federal agencies to supply more water from across the state to prioritize water needs by humans instead of trying to protect a nearly extinct tiny fish species known as the Delta smelt. What's more, on social media, in a press conference and even in a White House order, Trump has also derided the Delta smelt as a worthless fish and slammed Californian authorities. And that is for trying to save its breed over real people risking their lives. But the question being, how did a tiny fish even get on Trump's nerves and land up in a heated political controversy surrounding wildfire response and water management? Experts say, in reality, California's Delta smelt has minimal connection to the city's water supply. Some of whom have criticized Trump's environmental policies over not being backed by scientific solutions. Meanwhile, Trump's claims regarding the fires have been different. First, on Truth Social, he asserted that Governor Gavin Newsom's failure to sign an order allowing millions of gallons of water from excess rain and snow melt to flow southward from the state's north, and that had hampered firefighting efforts. Then, Trump asserted the accusation in a day one executive order in the form of a memorandum titled "Putting People Over Fish, Stopping Radical Environmentalism to Provide Water to Southern California." It's no secret that in times things flared up between Trump and Newsom, with the US president asking the governor to quit over his mismanagement of the LA fires, and Newsom hitting back at Trump for making this issue a political one. But what you see is that the experts suggest that California has a complex water crisis for over 4 decades, with climate change also playing a very key role in it. But can a fish really be blamed for the plight of millions who have been facing some of the deadliest infernos of the history of California? That has also ravaged prominent cities, areas and neighborhoods. What about lawmakers, governments and policymakers who are in fact in charge of real and strong decision making that can perhaps impact the lives of millions grappling with the current crisis? Moreover, California's water management policies have long been a flashpoint between environmentalists and urban planners. And as far as the fish is concerned, experts suggest that the story is quite the other way around. In 2009, water diverted due to agriculture and urban use, which then created a loss of habitat, as well as increased predation by invasive species and exposure to contaminants, prompted Californian officials to list the fish as endangered. This had also sparked discussions around balancing conservation alongside meeting agricultural and human demands. Now, massive federal and state-run pumping stations redirect water from northern areas to the south, which then create challenges for the smelt and other life. Experts suggest protections that limit the amount of pumping for the delta smelt and other fish have had minimal recent impact on the LA water supply. With data now suggesting that most of the state's major reservoirs are currently at or above historic levels for this time of year, particularly in the south. This not only makes Trump's claims rather questionable, but also turns this humble species into a scapegoat, or if we can say, a scapefish. And now the moot question is, even with new fires breaking out in parts of California every other day and firefighters die-hard efforts to control the damage, can LA be out of the woods soon? Well, that only time will be able to tell.